Hello and welcome to another video by Clearview Systems. Today we're going to talk about picture ID types. On the left-hand side here, click on the drop-down menu and find Picture ID types and click on it. Now this window should appear. In this video, we're going to be creating two types of picture IDs. One will be generic and another will be specific. Let's start off with the generic type. So at the menu above, click on New, and this new window will appear. Say if you have a customer coming from Korea, you may not always know what the length of their ID number might be or any specific information. Therefore, you can just use a generic template and move forward from there. Let's begin by filling in the fields. Since this is a generic template, let's create one for an international passport. So in template name, let's create an abbreviated name. When you click on the tab key, this new window will appear and just click on the type of ID you're typing in. So here we have passport and click on OK. For description, we're going to call it a international passport. Now for country code, default state, and issuing authority, we will just leave these blank since this is a generic template and we don't necessarily know that information. For the standard government code, depending on your country, you may need to report certain people to the authority, and the government actually has their own code for reporting picture IDs. When you're creating a generic template for your ID, you will need to enforce a flexible minimum and maximum length. The entry filter enforces the entry to be a character type. Now, say if you wanted the input to be digits, that is done with ampersand 9. Ampersand means must be, and then the 9 represents digits. This is then followed by the pound symbol, and this represents the number of digits that you want entered. So here let's start off with 9 digits. The display format will customize the look of your entry. Say if you wanted a space between every third digit, this will be done here. And here you will be also using the pound symbol. So for example, like I mentioned before, for a generic template, we're going to need a flexible length. So let's start off our minimum length to be at least 5 and at maximum 15. So when we set up a more realistic range for potential entries, it gives us more flexibility as well. So now let's test this. I'm going to type in 9 digits. Notice how it automatically formats it for me because of the display format I had designed. If you wanted your entry to be the alphabet, you could change the ampersand 9 to this. And this now converts everything to the alphabet. So if I try to type in any digit, it will not appear. But if I type in alphabets, it will work. Now let's change this back to digits. Now, what if I wanted my entry to start with the number 1 and say it always has to start with 1? This is also done here. We're going to include an ampersand with double quotes on 1 and another pound symbol. And now that has set the number 1 to be our starting point of our entry. Make sure to also include another digit in your display format. Now let's test this out. So notice how I am in the first position of my entry filter. I am typing any number other than 1, and it is not showing up. If I type in 1, it will appear. Now I'll continue to fill in the rest, and there you go. If this section at all seems intimidating or you're still confused, please do not hesitate to contact Clearview Systems, and they will create a specific filter that you are looking for. For the mandatory fields on a generic passport, we know that most passports have an issuing date, so that's mandatory. Most passports have an expiry date, That is also mandatory. And the issuing country will also be mandatory. The rest I'll leave up to you. Now we have created a generic template for passports. All we're going to do now is click Save, and you should see that option appear. Now what about for a specific passport? Let's create another one. Again, click on New. Let's say our customer has a Canadian passport. Let's create one for that and begin to fill in the fields. So now that we know that this is a Canadian passport, we know that Canada has a standard government code. So in our PTR reporting codes, click on Passport. Now notice how an F appears in the box for standard government code. If you hover your mouse over the box, a description should appear for what that is in case you forget. Now let's continue to fill in the fields. Since we know a Canadian passport, for example, has exactly 9 digits, we're going to want to design our entry filter to suit that exact number. We're going to make sure our minimum and maximum lengths are both exactly 9 digits. Now for the mandatory fields, again, we're going to say issuing date is mandatory, expiry date is mandatory, country, and in this case, we're going to say issuing authority is mandatory. Now for the picture ID, I have previously already saved this customer's ID into a folder that I'll be using. So if I click on Browse, I will see that customer's ID, and it should pop up in this box below. Now you've created a specific picture ID for a Canadian passport. Make sure to click on Save. Again, you should see this appear on your window. If you click on All, you should see all of the previous templates that you had created. So below we see the Canadian passport and international passport that we had created. Now, if you have any other questions, please feel free to contact Clearview Systems, and have a great day.